Ever feel like there's this constant like tug of war going on in your mind?
Oh, yeah.
You know, that whole like angel on one shoulder, devil on the other kind of thing.
Hmm.
Turns out that's not just a funny saying.
Right.
It's actually rooted in some pretty fascinating psychology.
Yeah.
So today we are diving deep into Jonathan Haidt's The Happiness Hypothesis
Okay.
to uncover why achieving happiness sometimes feels like such an uphill battle.
Yeah, Haidt really masterfully blends like psychology and philosophy
Correct.
to really help explain why that internal tug of war you were just talking about feels so real, you
Okay.
know? And he really argues that our minds are divided, not literally, of course,
Right.
but in a way that really impacts our everyday lives.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. So tell me more about this whole divided mind idea. How does that affect our pursuit of happiness?
So imagine this, a rider on an elephant.
Okay.
Okay, so the rider represents our conscious thought, our rational planning self. The elephant,
Mhm.
that's all our emotions, instincts, and those deeply ingrained habits we all have.
Mhm.
The rider thinks they're in control, but the elephant, well, the elephant has a mind of its own
Yeah.
and a lot more power, I'd say.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
So that feeling of wanting to eat healthy, but then like being powerless to resist that donut in the break room,
exactly.
that's my elephant taking over.
Precisely. That's a perfect example. Haidt uses this rider and elephant analogy to explain why we do things that seem totally irrational
Right.
or even counterproductive to our own happiness.
Yeah.
But you know, the elephant isn't inherently bad, though.
Okay.
These automatic responses often come from like deeply ingrained survival mechanisms
Interesting.
that have kept humans going for, well, millennia.
It's starting to make sense why breaking bad habits or making big life changes can feel so impossible sometimes.
Exactly. We can't just think our way out of these ingrained patterns.
Right.
Haidt really emphasizes that understanding this division, this rider and elephant, it's like the crucial first step to achieving any kind of lasting change.
So how do we work with our inner elephant then, instead of constantly battling against it?
That's where things get interesting.
Okay.
It's not about overpowering the elephant, but really understanding, its motivations and kind of gently guiding it in the direction we want to go.
Okay, so I can't just force myself to be happy, but I can learn to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
The forces at play kind of within my own mind.
Yeah.
This is honestly making me rethink how I even approach personal growth and happiness. What else does Haidt say?
Well, he goes into this concept called negativity bias.
Okay.
It explains why all those negative thoughts and experiences really stick with us so much more than the positive ones.
Okay.
But I think we should save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Oh, you're killing me. All right, but you've definitely piqued my interest.
That negativity bias we talked about last time,
Okay, yeah.
it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, so it's like that one like negative comment on like an otherwise like stellar performance review that just like lodges itself in your brain and just like festers there.
That's exactly it. And
Yeah.
our brains are just hardwired to focus on those negative experiences.
Yeah.
It's like this evolutionary leftover from our ancestors.
Intriguing.
Back when remembering threats was like crucial for survival.
Right, so like back when we had to worry about like saber-toothed tigers and stuff.
Exactly like that.
Okay.
So basically, our brains are kind of still stuck in that fight or flight mode,
Wow.
even when there's no real danger present.
Even when I'm just like sitting at my desk.
Yeah, like when you're just trying to enjoy your coffee and
Oh.
then boom, that negative comment pops up.
Ugh. I know, and it just like ruins the whole day.
It really can. And Haidt points out that we tend to remember that negative feedback way more intensely
Oh yeah, for sure.
and for way longer than any praise or positive feedback.
Ugh, it's so true.
Like one critical comment can totally outweigh like a dozen compliments in our minds.
That's so frustrating.
It really is. But the good news is
Okay.
we're not just puppets of our evolution. We can actually learn to manage this negativity bias.
Okay, so there's hope.
There's definitely hope. Awareness is the first step.
Okay.
Just understanding that our brains have this like inherent tendency towards negativity. It can help us consciously counteract it.
So how do we actually do that though?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right, because it feels like it's just automatic, you know?
Yeah, it feels that way. But Haidt suggests consciously focusing on the positive aspects of any situation.
Okay.
Like, let's say you hit a roadblock at work. Instead of dwelling on it, try shifting your focus to the progress you did make.
Okay.
Or maybe the lessons you learned from that roadblock.
So it's about like actively reframing those negative experiences.
Exactly. It's like a mental muscle we need to exercise regularly.
But is that like just putting on rose-colored glasses and ignoring real problems?
Not at all. It's not about denying that negativity exists.
Sure.
It's about choosing where you focus your energy.
Okay, I like that.
Think about it this way. You're holding a glass of water.
Okay.
You can choose to focus on the fact that it's half empty, or you can focus on the fact that it's half full.
Right.
The amount of water doesn't change, but your perspective does.
That's a really good analogy.
It's all about perspective.
So we've got this divided self, this negativity bias.
Mhm.
It makes you wonder, is lasting happiness even achievable with all of this going on?
Haidt definitely thinks so, and in fact, that's exactly what he talks about in the next part.
Oh, really?
He presents this really fascinating happiness formula that breaks down the elements that contribute to our overall well-being.
A happiness formula.
A happiness formula.
Yeah, you've got my attention. I have
Yeah.
to know more about this formula.
So,
Happiness formula. Huh. Okay, you got to tell me more about this.
right, so it's like an equation.
Okay.
H equals S plus C plus V.
H for happiness, obviously.
Exactly.
Well, what's the rest?
So S stands for our set point.
Set point.
Think of it like our baseline happiness level.
Okay.
It's partly determined by things like our genetics and our personality.
So some people are just like naturally happier than others.
Yeah, some of us are just naturally more inclined to see that glass half full, you know?
Well, that hardly seems fair.
You're right, life's not always fair. But here's the thing. Our set point isn't fixed.
Oh, okay.
That's where the C comes in.
C.
Conditions.
Condition.
Yeah, like the circumstances we find ourselves in.
So that's where we have some control then.
Exactly. This is where we have agency conditions. Conditions include all those factors like our relationships,
Okay.
our work environment, even that daily commute you were talking about.
Okay, so I can choose to focus on building stronger relationships, or like you said, finding a job that I actually like.
Exactly. You're getting it.
What about V then? What's that stand for?
Voluntary activities.
Oh, okay, so things we do by choice,
Exactly. Those conscious choices we make about how we spend our time and energy.
like meditation or exercise.
Exactly. Or even just spending quality time with loved ones, like you said, pursuing those things that really light us up.
It sounds like V is about like actively cultivating happiness through what we do every day.
Exactly. And here's another interesting insight from Haidt. He really emphasizes that experiences those bring more lasting happiness than material possessions do.
That makes sense. That trip I took to Italy a few years ago still brings me more joy than like any new phone I've bought,
Exactly. And think about it. Experiences often involve connecting with others.
which you said is so important for happiness.
It all ties together.
Wow, this happiness formula is really giving me a whole new way to think about happiness. Like, not just what it is, but how to actually be happier.
That's what's so great about Haidt's work. He doesn't just throw out these abstract theories, you
It's not-
know? He gives us practical tools and insights we can actually use.
It's really resonating with me. And to think we've only just scratched the surface of this book. He talks about so much more.
He really does. Like the power of love and connection, the unexpected benefits of going through hard things, even the role of virtue and like finding meaning in something bigger than ourselves.
It's all connected, huh?
It really is. And you know what? He leaves us with this really thought-provoking question.
What's that?
He asks, if true happiness comes from things like connection and purpose and living a life that reflects our values, maybe the real question isn't how can I be happy, but how can I live a life that matters?
Wow, that's really powerful. I think that's something we all need to think about more. It's not just about chasing some fleeting feeling of happiness, but creating a life of meaning and connection. Yeah, I love that. And hey, if you're listening, this conversation has resonated with you, I highly recommend checking out the happiness hypothesis for yourself. It's definitely given me a lot to think about. Until next time, everybody keep exploring, keep learning, and keep seeking out those things that make life truly meaningful.